Major breaking news. Elon Musk, to his 229 million followers on X, has just posted a very favorable comment, not just about the First Amendment right to free speech, but more importantly for our perspective, the right to keep and bear arms and the Second Amendment. That's right, we're going to break down this crazy story about Elon Musk stepping up in the fight for our right to keep and bear arms, arising from, believe it or not, an insane story out of what once was a free country, the United Kingdom. You're not going to believe what just happened on Saturday. We'll break it down now. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Box of Dine, a proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, folks, before we talk about this big statement from Elon Musk to his huge number of followers, I want to remind you all that starting on Monday, December 1st, you're going to have an opportunity to vote on a daily basis, if you so choose, for me to win the top voice of the Second Amendment, top voice of the 2A, at the 2026 Gundies Awards. You all showed great support for me last year, and I really appreciate it. And now it's time to do it again. Time to try to repeat. It's always hard to repeat, but, I feel like this year, maybe we can be the ones to do it. We'll see. So anyway, more details to follow. I'll put a link to it over on X. I'll put a link to it on the comments below, and I'll remind you for the next few weeks. So I think the voting goes on for a few weeks. All right, folks. So with that said, Elon Musk just issued a critical statement late on Saturday night in support of our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. As you know, during the 2024 election cycle, on behalf of Donald Trump, Elon Musk went around the country to the critical battleground states, such as places like Pennsylvania, and argued in favor of not just our First Amendment right to free speech, which he advanced on X by buying X and allowing it to be the great communications mechanism that it has become, allowing for voices that were otherwise censored by the lamestream media and the Biden administration have an opportunity to speak out. He also went out there and fought hard for our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms because he understood, Elon Musk understands, just like you understand and I understand, you cannot be a free citizen, my friends, if you do not have the right to defend yourself with arms. If you don't have guns, if you don't have the right to bear arms, you are a serf, you are a subject, and maybe even worse. Because what can government do to you if you don't have guns? What can government do to a society if they don't have guns? The answer is anything it wants. Because there's no ability to fight back if the only people with guns in a country are the government. So if the government goes bad, you're SOL. Our founding fathers understood this. James Madison understood this. Thomas Jefferson understood this. Our founding fathers understood this so well that they adopted the Second Amendment, which codified an existing right. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is an existing right. It was a pre-existing right. And Elon Musk yet again just reminded us this in the context of a case, shocking case, that arose out of the United Kingdom. That's right. Believe it or not, a British IT consultant in the United Kingdom was recently arrested by police officers in the UK for what? Ready, folks? He posted, allegedly, posed with a firearm, I believe a shotgun, in Florida, in the United States when he was here on a trip, a tourist trip. He was here legally. And he posed with a firearm, had his photo taken, and posted it, allegedly, apparently, to his LinkedIn profile. He's here in the United States. He was legally possessing the gun. I think it was like a basic shotgun. It wasn't even anything exotic. Certainly nothing that caused me to bat an eye. Nevertheless, when he went back to the United Kingdom, people complained, and the police visited him, and apparently he was literally arrested, initially for possessing an illegal gun, which, of course, that apparently went nowhere because he wasn't in the United Kingdom. How do you get jurisdiction over that? But then he was arrested and harassed for allegedly engaging in some form of stalking harassment online, apparently by posting an intimidating photo of himself with a shotgun in Florida in the United States, which he was legally allowed to have. And yet in the United Kingdom, he was arrested by the British police. I am embarrassed Winston Churchill is embarrassed. He is rolling over in his grave at the embarrassment that the British government have become. Craziness. And then as a result of the story reported widely, including by GB News, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. In the description of this case, it was responded to by Elon Musk, who literally said, upon reading this article in GB News and commenting on the story, Elon Musk said to his 229 million followers, and this is why we have the First and the Second Amendments in America. That was by Elon Musk in response to a post by a website or a news company called Amuse. I'll put a link to it here, or I'll display it on the graphics here right now. That's right. According to this story that was posted, originally published apparently in GB News and other British outlets, here's what it says in the article. That a British IT consultant was arrested by West Yorkshire police after posting pictures of himself posing with guns during an American holiday on LinkedIn. The gentleman's name, who's apparently 50 years of age, he shared this photograph taken at a Florida homestead, Florida home, Florida residence, I presume, in August of this year. Now, this post on LinkedIn sparked apparently a 13-week ordeal, according to the reports, which began with the police warning at his residence, and then it got worse and worse and worse. Very embarrassing. Craziness. But I'm happy to report that Elon Musk has used this story to bring attention to the American public, to the Second Amendment community, and to everyone in this great country. It's unfortunate the United Kingdom has become what it's become, which doesn't appear to be free at all. No right to free speech in the way we would understand it. Certainly no right to keep and bear arms in the way we would understand it. And it seems to be trending worse and worse and worse. I have a feeling that some of this is arising from immigration, but that's a story for another day. With that said, I want to remind you all of something critically important, because the one thing you tune into this channel for at the Four Boxes Diner is to make you the smartest person in the room. And to do that, I want to remind you of something I haven't talked about for a couple years, but I'm going to remind you now. The United Kingdom in the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century had very similar rights protections when it came to the right to keep and bear arms that we did in the United States. That's right. Up until the year of our Lord, 1920, the Brits basically had the same right to possess guns, the same right to carry guns, including handguns. They had all those rights. And then what happened? World War I, and this is an important lesson, folks. World War I broke out, and needless to say, it was a terrible war. A war that, frankly, no one can explain how it started or why it went so long and how they behaved. The way the governments misbehaved by sending, tens of thousands of their citizens, into machine guns, as if this was somehow smart. And yet all these European governments did exactly this, including the British government. This was a terrible catastrophe for the Brits and for all the European countries. And as a consequence of this, and I'm going to give you some quotes in a moment, the British government in 1920, just as the World War I was ending, issued a report called the Blackwell Report that basically, it's going to sound familiar, it's what the lefties do in America today. They issued this report saying that we have to do something about all these trained and armed men coming back from World War I because of, frankly, the fear that they might topple these governments. Why? Because the European governments were so moronic in their, frankly, not caring about the lives of their citizens and sending these tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of men into machine gun nests to be mowed down in a moment's notice for what? Well, they were scared to death. The British government was scared to death that bad things were going to happen to the government because of their terrible behavior toward their own citizens, their own soldiers, that the 1920 Blackwell Report gave rise to what ultimately became legislation, which was a form of licensing laws to make it much harder to possess firearms and far more harder to carry guns, and basically became a form of may issue licensing regimes starting in 1920. all because the government was scared of the blowback they were going to get from armed men coming back to the country from overseas, and how they now viewed their government as, frankly, not a great actor. And just to give you some historical context, I'm going to give you a quote from Stephen Halbrook's excellent book, The Right to Bear Arms, discussing this English history, this 1920 Blackwell Report. Here's what Professor Halbrook had to say about it in his book, The Right to Bear Arms. Issued just 4 days after Armistice Day, that ended the Great War, that's World War I, the Blackwell Report worried that, quote, large numbers of pistols and possibly other weapons will have come into the possession of private persons, notably discharged soldiers and their relatives, and that the number of men skilled in the use of firearms will have greatly increased, close quote. Danger was expected from, quote, the savage or semi-civilized tribesmen in outlying parts of the British Empire whose main demand is for rifles and ammunition, and two, the anarchist or intellectual malcontent of the great cities whose weapons are the bomb and the automatic pistol. Of course, the reality was this. Several empires had fallen. You had the communist takeover in Russia and the like, and it was clear that the British government was scared to death that their citizens were going to turn on them for being morons. That's exactly what it was. So what did the government do? Because they acted like morons, they generated this Blackwell Report in 1920 and acted on it by basically making it very difficult for private citizens to get arms and to carry guns, which had not been the case prior to that. And here's what Professor Halbrook had to say in summarizing the real motive by the British government in 1920 by enacting the law arising from this Blackwell Report. Professor Halbrook writes, quote, the result of the Blackwell Report was the enactment of the Firearms Act of 1920, which required a firearm certificate to purchase, possess, use, or carry a firearm, and gave discretion to the chief of police to decide if an applicant had, quote, good reason for requiring such a certificate, close quote. The act was prompted more, listen carefully, folks, this is important. The act was prompted more by fear of revolution than of crime. After a secret meeting of the government's cabinet during its drafting, a skeptical secretary recorded, quote, I felt I had been to Bedlam, red revolution and blood and war at home and abroad. Mission critical lessons there, folks, that Elon Musk recognized and tweeted out or posted on X. And that is the right to keep and bear arms and the right to free speech go together. If you take away the right to keep and bear arms, the government can do anything it wants to. They can take away your right to free speech. They can take away your right to trials. They can take away all sorts of other protections, rights, and liberties from you. And that is why the Founding Fathers were wise to make sure that we not only had arms, but that we were trained and familiar with them. And there are, we have over 400 million firearms flown around the United States at least. And who knows how many people, there's got to be over 100 million gun owners in one way or another. And many gun owners are out there that probably no one even knows who they are or where they are. And that's how they want to keep it. And I applaud that. All right, folks. So a crazy case out of the United Kingdom involving a guy arrested simply for having his photograph taken with a gun in America, gets arrested over in Europe, specifically in the United Kingdom, causes such a stir and an insane story that seems absurd to Americans. So absurd that Elon Musk literally responds and observes and comments on the story, of course, in favor of our right to free speech and our right to keep and bear arms. And I applaud Elon Musk for doing it. Thank God he bought X, because if he didn't do that, I really don't know where any of us would be today. Okay, folks, so there you have it. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of history, a little bit of contemporary news, and how it all connects together. We should never lose our Second Amendment rights. I certainly don't intend to give up my rights, and I hope you guys all agree with me and feel the same way. I'm sure you do. But anyway, it's always good to be the smartest person in the room, and I hope I'm helping you achieve that. So with that said, make sure you follow me over there on X at 4Boxes Diner, and don't forget to subscribe both to YouTube and to Rumble. And I look forward to talking to all of you again real soon here at, you guessed it, the 4Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.